If you're sick of the mainstream sports outlets, well, so was I. So I started my own show. I'm Shane Larson, and this is the Game Time Guru. It's different than other talk shows. I'm providing a panoramic view on sports so you can see them through a different lens. So buckle up and let's go. What's up, everybody? Welcome out to another episode of the Game Time Guru podcast. I'm your host, Shane Larson, and today I'm coming at you solo. You guys, you know me by now. I usually do interviews. I'll bring on some guests, but I'm going to switch things up a little bit this year. I'm going to bring on some amazing guests. I'm still doing that, but I'm going to also switch things up throughout the month and kind of give you my own perspective on sports, talk about some topics myself, some live updates. I want to get a mixture of everything, right? So I want to be able to share my passion with you from my perspective as well as the perspective of other guests. So that's why I'm going to be going solo today and talk with you guys a little bit about a couple different topics. Before we get started, though, I want to give you an update on the show and let you know what's happening, right? I've told you guys big things are coming. So right now we're working on a membership site for the podcast where you have access to all the content, and you'll have access to a Facebook group where we can also go in there and have discussions in regards to sports. And it's going to be an amazing opportunity for all of us sports fans to get together and just talk sports. Sometimes we got to get away from the world. We've got to get away from all the political discussions, the religious discussions. We got to get away from all of that and kind of have a break from reality and just go into the sports discussions, because that's supposed to bring, the good conversations. Sometimes there's debates, but they're fun debates because they're regarding sports. So keep an eye out for that. It's in the works. It's going to be a couple of weeks before that's even close to being ready, but I want you guys to know that we're going to have that. So have that on your radar going forward. So if you haven't followed me already, please, if you're listening to this on Facebook, Facebook, if you're listening to it on iTunes, YouTube, whatever it is, go follow me on all my platforms, my social media platforms. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Search for me and go find me. Also, subscribe to the show. I love it if you can subscribe to my show. It helps me out, obviously, so don't want it to sound selfish, but it does help me out if you subscribe to the show. And then you can get all the episodes as they come through. Every time a new episode is posted, which is every Friday, you'll have the episode come through on your phone. The best way to do that, iTunes is really easy. An iPhone is really easy because it already has the Apple Podcast app built into the phone. But there's other ones like Spotify, and if you have an Android, there's Google Play Music. There's also Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Overcast, Castbox. So many apps. They're all free, and my podcast is free to download and listen to. So just do that for me and do me a favor, and that'd be awesome. So breaking into the discussion today, I want to actually start with a new segment called Where Are They? I'm going to give you an in-depth look at kind of where some of these guys are at that have been on my show in the past, and I thought it was fitting to bring up Kyle Aslami. Kyle is an amateur mixed martial arts fighter here out of the Treasure Valley in Idaho, and Kyle was on my podcast during the summer. Okay, and he was talking about his career, what he intends on doing, the work that he puts in. You guys should go back and check it out. I'll put the link down here so you guys can see it. Kyle's episode was incredible, and it's really cool to watch his progression. I always keep an eye on all the guests that I bring onto the show. It's not like I just bring them on and don't ever talk to them again. I like to build relationships and kind of keep an eye on people and support them in their journeys, because that's the same thing I want. I want people to support me as I go through this sports media journey and continue to build this brand and this business. So I keep an eye on Kyle. Well, now Kyle's got a fight coming up next week, a week from today, which is going to be at CenturyLink Arena. It's going to be for Front Street Fights. I encourage you guys to all pay attention to it and watch it. Kyle's a great fighter. I've watched how he's put in the work since the podcast that we had this summer, the training that he's consistently done. I followed him on social media, and I see what he's doing. He trains. He's had a fight in between, which he did not come out victorious, but he still went up. He traveled to go to that fight, and now he's back in the Treasure Valley ready to fight. And I'm excited for it because he's going to be in front of his hometown crowd. So if you live in Boise and you want to go check out Front Street Fights, go check it out. There's tickets available. They're actually really fun, and I'm always one to encourage you to give these younger fighters and these fighters that go on these smaller promotions like Front Street Fights, go support them. Everybody always talks about these UFC fighters and Bellator and these big name promotions, and they don't think that anybody else is good fighters because they're, local talent, they're on smaller cards. No, you guys have to understand there are so many talented athletes and talented professionals in their field that simply don't get an opportunity to be seen. So they have to work their way up through the ranks. And Kyle Aslami is one of those. He has amazing footwork. That's one of the things I noticed about Kyle when I first started watching him fight is he has amazing footwork. So he's fun to watch because he's strategic with the way he moves around the octagon. So make sure you check it out. Kyle's going to be fighting next Friday. So he's still in the fight business. Kyle's killing it, and he will have a fight coming up. So, guys, I wanted to kind of just give a little bit of a breakdown in the sports world from my perspective. A couple of things I wanted to talk about today. The main thing I will get to in just a second, but it's that week, that time of the year where, we got the Super Bowl coming up, which is, exciting, but after the Super Bowl, it's that dead time where, it's basketball and then baseball is going and they'll start up. And it's kind of weird because you always get depressed after the Super Bowl because football's over. But leading up to the Super Bowl, we had a very exciting time. And not for necessarily a good reason. The NFC Championship and the AFC Championship games, exciting ones to watch. But the NFC Championship, obviously, the refs took a lot of flack for that. There were some missed calls in that game, and we've spoken with different people around the sports industry here on the show, and I've tried to keep an open mind now, but referees, man, it's a struggle sometimes. It's a struggle for me. It's a struggle for me to understand how they blatantly miss certain calls. And some of those calls are game-changing calls. Like you can say every call or every missed call is a game-changing call, but there are some that are truly detrimental to drives in football. So like if it stops a drive, hinders scoring opportunities. There's so many calls that can be so detrimental to the outcome of games, and it's very difficult to watch. And luckily, I didn't have a dog in the fight. Otherwise, I would have been extremely upset because I've been there before. I've been on the good and the bad side of the bad calls. As a Cowboys fan, I watched the Dez Bryant miscatch, and I thought that was an awful call. And I also saw the week prior to that when they beat the Lions when they reversed a pass interference call, which I still don't think was pass interference, but when I watched the replay, I still don't think there was pass interference. But if you go back and watch that Lions game, there were some sketchy things that happened, and that was back when the Cowboys were playing them right before they played the Packers in that game to have that Dez Bryant miscatch. So anyways, referees always come up in the media, and I hate that when that overtakes the game itself and what was done in the game. The good news is the AFC Championship was incredible. Granted, the overtime rules suck in NFL football. NFL football, but it was an incredible game. I blame that completely on Andy Reid. That's my take. Andy Reid had 3 timeouts going into the overtime. His defense was absolutely rattled. They couldn't stop anybody. They were breathing hard. They got him to 3rd and long, 3rd and medium, and they kept converting 3rd downs, the Patriots did. You knew they were going to Edelman. You knew they were going to they were going to Gronk, but you couldn't stop them. That was the problem, and you just couldn't stop them. So they were getting rattled, and they were getting defeated, and he didn't once call a timeout. Even at the goal line, when they got into past the 10-yard line on the final drive of overtime, Andy Reid had an opportunity to call timeout and let his team take a break and regroup, and he did not. He had 3 timeouts to use, and he didn't use either one of them. So it's kind of frustrating to watch that. I blame that on Andy Reid. A lot of people will say, oh, well, that's great play by Tom Brady, great execution, which it was. But you have to also understand that you're a coach and you need to make adjustments and understand the situation. I think Andy Reid is known for that. He doesn't make good in-game adjustments, good game management decisions, and I think that came back to bite them. So it's kind of frustrating for Chiefs fans because we didn't get to see Patrick Mahomes at least even have a shot at beating Tom Brady in overtime, and that was very frustrating. I'm going for the Rams in the Super Bowl. I don't want the Patriots to win another one, but I don't know if they can match with the Patriots. The Patriots' execution is unbelievable. In NBA news, guys, if you're paying attention to the NBA, it's exciting right now what James Harden is doing. I used to hate Harden. I really did. I hated James Harden. I could not stand the guy, but he is putting up absolutely insane numbers right now and executing at an efficient level. Now, one of the things we can love him or hate him, right, based on his style of play. He always draws fouls. He always does that. He has a weird style of play, goes to the free throw line frequently. okay, frequently, and we know that. But James Harden has a style of play that's so efficient because he can get the ball, he can distribute the ball, and he can score at will. He can get to the free throw line, he distributes the ball. So he does put a lot of pressure on defenses because he has found a style in this game, in this era, where he has to make the referees make a call. And he does that. And it's extremely difficult for defenders because they have to figure out, well, do I play defense with my hands? If I stick my hands out there, he's going to hook me and we're going to get a foul call. If I don't play with my hands and he gets past me, then he's going to dish to the rock because I can't let him go right by me because he's going to dish it to whoever's out for a three-pointer. He is such an efficient player, and you can't deny that. It's insane. But keep an eye on the Western Conference, guys. Keep an eye on the Western Conference. The Utah Jazz, and everyone's like sitting there, oh, well, they're not what they were last year. I actually disagree. I disagree that they're not what they were last year. They're literally almost the exact same team as they were last year. They had a very difficult schedule for the first 40 games, and now you're starting to see what happens. And they got a little bit of a bump with Donovan Mitchell playing at the point guard position while Ricky Rubio was out with an injury. And you saw what happened is when they started getting a flow. And that's the scary thing about the Jazz is they have so many people that can actually contribute and contribute consistently. When I say contribute, I mean getting over 10 points a game. You'll look down a Jazz, stat line from night in and night out, and you might see 4 or 5 players in double digits. It's not just 1 or 2 guys. It's 4 or 5 players in double digits, 10 to 15 points for some, 30 for others. But they distribute and they contribute, and it's a fun game to watch. So watch as the Jazz continue to creep up in the Western Conference standings as they move forward towards the All-Star break, but also to the second half of the season. I'm also curious to see how the Lakers do once LeBron's fully healthy. They obviously had an initial push with LeBron. The last couple of weeks they've been out. Kind of down in the slump, and you're starting to see the impact that LeBron James has on a team. It's unbelievable how important LeBron is for a team. Okay, unbelievable. And I think we're starting to see that now. But I don't know how the Lakers are going to respond. Are they going to be able to, have enough time to creep up in the Western Conference? This is not the Eastern Conference of old that LeBron was used to, where you could finish 500 and still be a 5 or 6 seed. That's not the case here. The Western Conference has historically been different than that in the last 5 to 10 years. So there's going to be a lot of work that needs to be done for a lot of teams as they're going to be battling for those last 3 positions in the West. So, guys, I do want to take a second and talk a little bit about Carmelo Anthony. So some teams are looking at Carmelo Anthony, where he's going to go and what he's going to do. And it's sad for me to see Carmelo Anthony at the position that he's in right now because I loved Carmelo and his game so much when he first got into the league. In fact, I loved him when he was at Syracuse, when he won the national championship as a freshman. I thought he was awesome. I loved his game because he was explosive back then and he could shoot the ball. And as a shooter myself, I like to shoot the ball. That's how I always was in basketball. I could shoot. I always respected his game, and I thought he transitioned to the NBA much quicker, and it was a smoother transition than LeBron James did. And at that time, I thought he was going to have a better NBA career than LeBron James. Obviously, that is not the case, but it's sad how quickly Carmelo Anthony kind of derailed in regards to his game and where he fits in this, today's NBA. Carmelo, though, if you guys look back, we forget so quickly, what happened. And as we look, this week was actually the 5-year anniversary of when he dropped. I think it was 62 at the Garden when he was with the Knicks. It was just 5 years ago. Like, it's not that long ago. We forget how good he still was, even when he was, battling injuries. He was taking the Knicks to the playoffs, and it was him and a bunch of guys, but he was taking them there, and he was competing, and he was actually really good. And with the Nuggets, he was explosive. He could dunk. He was a high flyer. He could shoot wherever he wanted. He was one of the best one-on-one ball players because he could shoot regardless of how good you were guarding him. He wasn't flashy, but he was explosive and could shoot the ball. And so now we're seeing, he didn't transition anymore because he couldn't adjust to today's NBA, and he let injuries derail him, and his attitude, he just wants to fit into a team, and it just doesn't work. And it's really sad for me to see that, but again, I've mentioned this before. I think a lot of credit needs to go towards people like LeBron James. You see how he's taking care of himself. He's adapted to the NBA. His game, went with the NBA. right? LeBron has been able to stick with the style of the NBA, whereas Carmelo Anthony's game just is not what they need anymore. His specific position is not, his skill set is not what's needed and efficient in today's NBA, and I feel really bad for him. I still think Carmelo can contribute on a team, but he cannot be a number one option. And the unfortunate thing about Melo is he needs to shoot the ball. He needs the ball in his hands in order to get into a rhythm and be effective. That's when he's the best, is when he is the number one option. The problem is today's teams don't need him as their number one option, and so it's a sad thing to see. And people are talking about him going to the Lakers because LeBron's always wanted to play with Melo. I don't see that working because I just don't see him. Like, they're trying to figure out who their number one scorer is. And, LeBron has to, drive and dish. But Melo doesn't want to be a spot-up shooter like he was in OKC and like he was about to be in Houston. He wants to be someone who can get the ball and you can run the offense through him. I just don't know if he can do that anymore, and it's just so sad to see. I still thought he had something in the tank. I hoped he would. Where he was at just 10 years ago compared to now is insane. It's just insane because just like 10, 11 years ago, they were fighting literally with the Lakers for a championship. They were fighting with the Lakers in the Nuggets-Lakers series to try to get into the championship, and they were really close. They were really, really close. And now we're looking at where he's at, and it's just insane how quickly the drop-off was because we forget how good he really was. And I hate that about players when they drop off and we just don't get to see, we just forget so quickly. I think that's how we are as sports fans. We quickly forget how good certain players were. And that's what's really sad for me, and I hope that he can make it on a team. So, guys, I'm going to wrap this up and let you guys go. It was my opportunity to speak with you guys this week. I'm going to do this from time to time, maybe once or twice a month, where I can just, talk sports with you guys, kind of break down a couple of the things going on. I didn't want my podcast to be only sports talk because it's what everybody else does, and I wanted to change it up. So I'm going to continue with that. I'm going to bring on guests and talk about things. We're going to bring on a guest out of Chicago who's going to be talking mental health and sports, and it's going to be an amazing discussion with him. He's a sports counselor out of Chicago, former collegiate soccer player, and he's a coach for high school soccer. So he has a lot of experience with youth sports and mental health. So that's going to be a great discussion. We're going to bring on amazing guests, but I do want to give you my opinions and everything moving forward. So again, guys, make sure to go follow me. You know the drill. We'll be here every Friday. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast, share it with your friends, and we'll talk to you next week. Guys, thanks so much for listening to another episode of my show. Now, if you could go and do me a favor, head over to iTunes, give me 5 stars, and leave me a review. It would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your support.